Hello everybody, it's TannerFishies here, back again with a new Ninjago video here on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the elemental powers of fire and water, how they are connected, and we're going to be discussing whether or not Kai himself could master the power of water at any point throughout Ninjago's timeline. Now, the concept of elemental powers, especially between families, is kind of complicated throughout Ninjago, at least in some very specific situations. Obviously, most elemental masters don't have siblings. In fact, a large majority of them are presumably only children. We don't really see a lot of other elemental masters, especially the modern day masters, even having any type of family at all. A lot of the elemental masters that existed during the Serpentine War married or got together with just regular people. So not everybody is going to be in a situation like Kai and Nia, who of course had both their mother and father have elemental abilities. Now, like I just said, elemental powers between families aren't exactly all that common. For example, we only have a few instances of this happening throughout Ninjago's timeline. Most notably, we have Wu and Garmadon, who are of course brothers, dawning from the first Spinjitzu master, who possess the elemental powers of creation and destruction respectively. We also have the situation of Acronix and Crux, but those two are twins, so them sharing the power makes a fair bit of sense. In terms of Kai and Nia, one of the only examples of multiple children descending from elemental masters, Kai inherited fire and Nia inherited water. Like I said, there are not a lot of examples of elemental masters getting together with other elemental masters, so Kai and Nia existing creates kind of an interesting conflict and raises a couple of very intriguing questions. The question goes, could Kai tap into the power of water because he is descended technically from a master of water? Same would go for Nia. Would she be able to control fire if she really wanted to? In order to answer the question and provide my own thoughts and theories, we need to discuss elemental masters with multiple powers, because if Kai and Nia could adopt each other's powers, that would mean that Kai and Nia would have two elemental powers each. In terms of Ninjago's history, we have indeed seen other elemental users utilize multiple elements at one time. The most famous example is probably Lloyd, who at the beginning of his run as the Green Ninja was able to tap into the four main elemental powers, those of course being fire, lightning, earth, and ice. He is a very rare exception though, because he's kind of descended from the first Spinjitzu master. It would very much make sense why he would be able to harness those four specific powers, as well as his own unique power of energy and later golden power. We can kind of see the same thing happening to Wu and Garmadon, though not even remotely close to the powers that Lloyd was able to showcase. So what about the other elemental masters? Have we ever seen any elemental user utilize more than one element? In a way, we kind of have. I mean, obviously you can mention Skylar being the master of Amber, but her power is very much that, copying other people's abilities and using them for her own. I'm talking about somebody who already has a distinct elemental power and uses another one. In a way, we really haven't, unless I'm forgetting something very, very obvious. I know we've also seen very small instances of, for example, Jay using wind and even Moro using lightning, but those can be written off as either mistakes or continuity errors. In terms of other elemental masters, we have technically seen Nia tap into the power of ice ever so slightly, but that was only because the properties of water are very similar to that of ice. It would kind of make sense how she was able to tap into that power a little bit. She didn't exactly master the elemental power of ice during season 11, but she got pretty close, I'd say. I can't really find any other examples of elemental masters utilizing a different power other than their own, because there are not that many examples of what Kai and Nia are. They are both siblings, and they are both descended from a couple who were both elemental masters, one of which being fire and one of which being water. Like I said, there are not a lot of examples of siblings in elemental families. Kai and Nia might be the only ones, at least the only ones with two separate elements. Like I said, Acronix and Crux are a thing, but they are twins, obviously. It's definitely not the same situation as Kai and Nia. So going back to the original question, could Kai control water and could Nia control fire? Maybe. I know for sure that the power does indeed exist within them, because again, they are descended from both parents. Kai, for example, is a descendant of both Rei and Maya. Therefore, he's essentially a combination of both of them. Same goes for Nia, who is also descended from both Rei and Maya. Obviously, the elemental powers of fire and water found their homes within each respective user, the fire power going to Kai and the water power going to Nia, but it's not like the genes of Maya don't exist within Kai. Same goes for Nia. It's not like the genes of Rei don't exist within her. Kai is simply not a descendant of Rei. He's a descendant of both Rei and Maya, theoretically meaning that Kai could indeed have some type of water power within him. If Kai got a lot of various traits from his mother, it's very possible that Kai could have inherited water as well. Same goes for Nia. This might also explain why Chen didn't need water for his spell all the way back during season 4. If you guys remember that, Chen wanted to gather all of the elemental powers to create a spell that would transform himself and all of his followers into Anacondri. Chen's kind of a crazy dude, but he famously didn't have a couple of elements, one of which being water, which wasn't really around at the time. To me, it would make sense that he would be able to extract it from Kai somehow, because I feel like Kai would have that dormant water gene within him, similar to how Nia would technically have a fire gene. But obviously there are indeed other explanations as to why Chen did not need that power. For example, Chen also apparently did not need wind or time to complete his spell, even though those count as elemental powers. There are a couple of theories surrounding that aren't really applicable to this theory right here in today's video, so we're not going to be discussing that all that much. In terms of Kai unlocking some type of water ability, I feel like that might actually play out very well in a future Ninjago story, and it could be the segue that the ninja need in order to get to Nia again. Obviously, if you guys know, following the conclusion of Ninjago Seabound, Nia merged with the elemental power of water and promptly left the ninja team, going off to parts unknown. Obviously, Nia is very happy in this environment, and she doesn't really seem all that focused on being a ninja, but it's very obvious that Nia will probably return at some point in time. It's very clear to me and many other Ninjago fans that Nia's probably not going to stay gone forever, but I do feel like it might be a minute before we see her again. In this scenario, if Kai were to unlock a water ability, Kai could easily contact Nia somehow through that power. Maybe he could tap into it somehow. Obviously, I don't feel like Kai would be able to completely harness the power of water, because like I said, he obviously inherited a very strong fire gene, but the water gene should still be within him somewhere, and by tapping into that power, he could theoretically contact Nia through that way. Maybe in an upcoming Ninjago story, we can see Kai try to master his water side, maybe using his new abilities to find Nia and maybe bring the rest of the ninja to her for some reason. This could also build up his character a little bit more as well and give a little bit more development to Kai. That was kind of what they did with Nia during season 11. They tried to get her to harness ice because Zane was kind of gone from the team, obviously, during that point in time. So the way that the show chose to develop Nia was to play around with her power set a little bit, and because ice and water are two very similar elements, perhaps Nia could tap into ice, which she very well did. Obviously, she didn't have complete control, but she was able to tap into it ever so slightly. I feel like we could see the same thing happen with Kai and his water powers. It could kind of be like a repeat of what season 5 was for Nia training with water. I would love to see Master Wu try to train Kai the same way, and perhaps we could even see Maya come back to train Kai in water, similar to how she trained Nia during the events of Seabound. I feel like Kai harnessing water is somewhat possible. Do I think it's going to turn into some big thing where Kai could easily control fire and water at will, and then theoretically Nia could do the same thing? They could both have their own power plus each other's powers? I don't think so. That would kind of make Kai and Nia a little too overpowered. There's a reason why Kai has fire and Nia has water, and it's that reason that I don't feel like this is going to happen at all. I feel like thinking about it theoretically, it would make sense. Like I said, it's not like Kai is simply just a descendant of his father. Same goes for Nia being a descendant of just her mother. The genes cross over. They have genes of both parents, obviously, so theoretically, like I said, you could consider Kai having a dormant water gene somewhere within him. Same goes for Nia having a dormant fire gene. But like I said, I doubt this is going to happen, and that's simply because of balance. If you take a look at Lloyd, for example, he was another character that had multiple powers under his belt, and what happened to him? He got nerfed, like really bad. He lost the ability to control literally any other element aside from energy, and the same thing would theoretically happen to Kai and Nia if they were to unlock each other's powers. I feel like the show purposely did not touch on this for that specific reason. They don't want to make the ninja too overpowered. The same logic would go for why the ninja don't have their elemental dragons anymore and don't have the ability to use air jutsu. Both of those abilities were cut out of the show due to the ninja being overpowered. With that being said, do I feel like Kai is going to unlock a water power? Probably not, but it would be nice to explore. There's definitely reasons as to why they could try to make Kai have some type of water ability, and it would be quite interesting to explore how the elemental powers would work, especially in that scenario. Like I said earlier in the video, Kai and Nia are a very specific and rare example of elemental masters. They are siblings descending from two elemental masters specifically. Not a lot of other Ninjago families have that happen. Usually it's the case of only one of the parents is an elemental master, and thus that power would be descended to that one child belonging to that one family. We saw that happen with Cole's family, Jay's family, so on and so forth. Kai and Nia truly are a rare case in the Ninjago elemental power gene pool. How exactly their powers work has been pretty much explained in the show already. Kai inherited fire and Nia inherited water. Obviously a simple explanation, but when you break it down, could Kai have some type of water gene within him, and could Nia Nia have some type of fire gene within her? Yeah, they very well could. I feel like that's very much possible. However, I feel like the show once again is going to be striving for that simplicity and going back to the standard of each child only inherited one power from each of their respective parents. Kai inherited fire and Nia inherited water. I feel like an elemental master with multiple abilities would be a very cool concept to explore, and obviously we haven't seen that since Lloyd, but Lloyd once again was a very special case. He's the descendant of the first Spinjitzu master. It would very much make sense that he could tap into other elemental powers. In terms of Kai and Nia, I feel like it's possible, but not likely. I think Kai unlocking some type of water power in the future could be an excellent story to explore, like I said earlier, could very well make for an interesting 2022 storyline, but do I think it's going to happen? Once again, probably not, though I do think it's possible, and I would like to see that. With that being said, you guys, that's going to pretty much wrap it up for my thoughts in today's video. Let me know down below in the comments what you think about this. Do you think this crazy theory is even remotely possible, or do you think we're going to still see Kai control fire and nothing else? Leave all your thoughts down below in the comments, and hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff, and check out the links down below in the description for other forms of social media. As always, big shout out goes out to my Patreon supporters, including once again the marvelous Jan. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video once again. My name is TannerFishies, and with that I bid you farewell.